Hi guys, it's been a while. I realize I haven't really had a chance to film because I'm always busy. I know there's other people out there that film constantly, and they have the same type of stuff going on in their lives, but like I prioritize other things. But I'm just here for story time basically. Today we're going over to the Cartoon Network Hotel. I don't think I'm going to film it because I just want to live in the moment. But last week, we tried to do a Raven Day. She had won the Easter egg again with the prize that says you plan a day. And she planned to go to Cartoon Network Hotel, and then I added in for her to go to this place called Dutch Wonderland. So I was like, okay, we're going to go to Dutch Wonderland and then Cartoon Network Hotel, and she was super excited. Well, we get to the place, and Cartoon Network Hotel lets us sign in early. You're not supposed to be able to go in until like 4 p.m., but they let us in at noon. So we go in. My cat's throwing things on the floor. He's just hitting everything on the floor. You see. Anyway. So we get there, and they let us in, and we go to Dutch Wonderland, and we're there for maybe we eat, and then we're maybe there for like an hour and a half. And suddenly Raven says she's sick while waiting in a line. She doesn't feel right. So I have her come over, and she sits down in a stroller that I had for Cora, my youngest. And I let her sit and relax. She told me she had puked, but I didn't see any puke. And then she starts doing something where she's like staring into space a little bit. And I'm starting to get worried because a month ago she had a seizure for the first time. So I was like, not again. I don't want this to happen again. It was scary enough the first time. So then I'm like asking her questions. I'm like, oh, what's your name? She's like, Raven. How old are you? 6. And then she's like, I was like, squeeze my right hand, squeeze my left hand. And I'm having her squeeze back and forth. And she's fine. So I leave her alone for a minute. Serenity comes off the one ride, goes, can I go on to another ride? There's no line. I'm like, okay, go ahead. So she goes on the ride. And as soon as she gets on the ride, Raven stops responding. She starts, I'm like, Raven, are you okay? And I see drool coming out of the side of her mouth, and she's staring into space, and she's not responding. I'm like, oh my gosh, Serenity's stuck on this ride. I should have told her, no, you can't go on there. We need to go to first aid. And when she got off, I'm like, you need to hurry. And we started running, and when we got, there was like, I was looking for an employee because I couldn't remember where first aid was. And I see an employee, and I'm like, I think my daughter's having a seizure. Could you point me in the direction of first aid? He's like, oh, I can get someone for you. But he's like, I don't have my walkie-talkie on me. So then, he's looking for someone with a walkie-talkie, and he has it. And he finds somebody, and they call over the first aid people. They bring her into the first aid room. And they're like, she's going to have to go on an ambulance. She was just not responding to anybody. And nothing was working to wake her up. She was definitely having a seizure. Her seizures are like staring seizures, apparently, where she's not really flailing around or anything. It's not like what you see in movies where people flail around. She was just staring and not responding. So she calls in EMTs. She starts putting oxygen on her because she said her oxygen was getting really, really low. And then the ambulance people come in. I have to bring my kids someplace else. And my thought is my daughter Serenity is certified to babysit. So I was like, until I can figure out what's going on, I'm going to go and I'm going to bring them back over to the hotel, get them situated in the room. Serenity can babysit until I go over and figure out what's going on at the hospital. And so that's what I did. And it was the longest drive ever to the hospital. Serenity knew how to call out, and she had the phone number to get to me if she needed me. But then I'm in the ER, and I'm explaining to them that my other kids are not with me, and I'm kind of worried about them. So someone's like, well, kids are allowed in the ER, which I did not know. That's why I didn't bring them with me. They're like, kids are allowed in the ER. So I went back. They said, go get them. I went back and I came to them. Came back to the hospital. My husband drove up from where we live to where we were because he had worked that day and he wasn't going on the trip with us. And he picked up the other kids and left. And then sitting with Raven, and they're like, well, we gave her this thing, and if she doesn't wake up by 9 o'clock p.m., we have to transfer her. And I was like, okay. And then they're like, if she does, then she can stay here tonight for observation. So I'm just like sitting there watching her. I'm doing like all sorts of things to try to wake her up. She's not waking up. And my thoughts that went through my head that day were horrible. They're like, oh my God, I'm a horrible mom. Why didn't I go quicker to the first aid place? I'm a horrible mom. I don't feel like I hug her enough. We get in some disagreements. She's very strong-willed. I was like, I hope she wakes up and she's the same, because I didn't know how seizures worked. Really, I didn't know if they could do like permanent damage where she wouldn't be able to talk or walk or whatever again. I didn't know if they did that kind of stuff. So I was like, please wake up, please be the same. And it was a very scary moment for me. And she, of course, didn't know what was going on. The last time she had a seizure, she woke up, she's like, why is everyone upset, basically. So 9 o'clock comes, she's still not awake, but they give her a couple extra minutes. She finally wakes up. She's really mad that she can't go to the Cartoon Network hotel anymore. And so they kept her overnight. They did an EEG, which looks at pictures of the brain. They said there was some strange activity in the back of her brain, and that now she needs an MRI. They're going to look, and now she also has to take medication for seizures. So I want to give some awareness type things out to let everyone know that seizures are not just like the flailing you see on TV. Some people don't know that. Sometimes it's your child seemingly staring into space, and it's like they're there physically, but nobody's home. No one's talking back. And I noticed with Ravens, if she told me she did barf in the line, if that's the case, that each one of her seizures that she had started off with her becoming physically ill and then slowly like zoning out. Because in the car, like the month before, she had one, and it was the first one she ever had, and it's the same thing. She puked, and then she was like drooling all over the place and staring into space. So it's not always just like the flail. Now, she ended up having, they figured in 3 seizures that day. There was one seizure on the, there was one seizure when we were waiting for her sister to get off the ride. There was one seizure in first aid, and there was one seizure when they put her on the ambulance. So she had a total of 3, and they had to give her something called, I think, Ativan to stop them from happening. It was like a rescue medication. So our next steps here are the MRI, and she's also getting genetic testing done to make sure there's not something genetically that's causing this issue, because she has this issue, and she also has a stomach issue, or an intestinal issue she's been dealing with, and I just have a feeling it could all be connected. She also has a mental delay, kind of, so it all seems like it's just related in some way, because I don't think any kid could have that much bad luck, like 3 things going on like that. So digestive issues, seizures, and what has not been clinically diagnosed, but in the intermediate unit near us diagnosed her with autism, but it's not a clinical diagnosis. So today we go to Cartoon Network Hotel, and I am hoping and praying that it goes much better. She deserves a day after what she went through last week. And it was awesome because Cartoon Network Hotel, shout out to them in Lancaster. If you're ever staying in Lancaster, look into them. It's set up more like a motel, but they are great people over there. They took care of us. They didn't charge us for the night. After this went down, they treated us so well. And they said come back whenever you can afford, or not that way, but they said can't come back when you can. And so I chose, okay, she's been doing pretty good this week. She's on medication. So we're going back today, and I think we're going to play in the park near Lancaster, in Lancaster. And we are going to also stay there, which is great. Like, they are amazing people. And again, if you're ever in Lancaster and you need a place to stay, Cartoon Network Hotel, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.